And welcome back. Well, the economic freedom fighters are celebrating their 5th anniversary this month. The party say that since their inception 5 years ago, it's been priding itself as being the voice to the voiceless. Their aim is, of course, also to hold the powerful accountable, and they believe in an economy in which production is about people and not profit. And with this said, the third biggest political party in the country has faced its fair share of controversy and also run-ins with the law. And joining us now is the leader and commander-in-chief of the economic freedom fighters, Julius Malema. Welcome. Always good to speak to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
5 years, and you guys were supposed to be the next COPE, you know, another party born out of hatred and disillusionment with the ANC?
Absolutely. I mean, the doomsayers have predicted that the EFF won't go beyond a year. When we went beyond a year, they said we're going to tear each other apart at our first national conference. And there are new predictions again that there will be differences in the EFF very soon and it will implode. But we don't see that happening because we are found on the principles of socialism, and those principles are well contained in the founding manifesto of the EFF. We are not just an angry party. We've got ideas and the vision we want to attain, and that is what drives us.
The EFF in Gauteng and the Free State, there have been reports of some discontent. As you say, people have been talking about, you know, the party tearing itself apart. What's happening there?
Well, we are going to conferences. You know, when you go to conferences, especially when you are a democratic organization, that is a period of some madness. It happens even in the country with general elections. Look at how peaceful we are now. Once a date of elections is announced, people get into a different mood and they do all types of things. But we're able to hold it together, and those who engage in ill discipline and an unacceptable conduct, we hold them accountable, refocus them and say, it's not about conferences, it's about attaining economic freedom in our lifetime.
Do you tolerate dissent within the EFF? Because those who have broken away have accused you of being very autocratic in your leadership style. Well,
there is no person who has broken away who held different views with us. Remember, let's take Andile Mkletama, for instance. When they left, they said Malema is joining the ANC. But they're ones who joined the ANC. I've not joined the ANC. So all the allegations leveled against me, they were actually talking about themselves, that these are the things we're going to be doing after the EFF. So there's no dissent which people have expressed in the EFF, and on the basis of that ideological differences, then we patched them. There was never such. There's no single individual who can claim ideological dissent, and as a result, he got patched. Many of them, they suffered from uncontrollable ambition for power.
Well, you know, earlier on we asked our viewers to tell us what they think of the impact that the EFF has made in these 5 years on the South African political landscape. And let's just take a look at some of those comments now coming through. And these are some of the tweets. Nazim Grootboom says, EFF has made a huge impact in our country and they are a force to be reckoned with. And this one is from Collins Ntetele, who says tertiary institutions across South Africa are now under EFF's leadership, and land that used to be vacant is being occupied at a rapid pace. The next one is from Honorable EFF member, who says it has done a lot of impact. I'm one of the young people who was never interested in politics until EFF came into existence. Today, I'm a Ward 80 secretary at the age of 22, helping the community every day. Sandile Mkawane says, for the first time in the country, Parliament can effectively hold government officials accountable. Even a private sector is scared of Parliament now. Before the EFF, Parliament was a gentleman's club where laziness was disguised as decorum. Ganista says they are using anger. They are doing this. There's a lot of hullabaloo and political hatred because they were expelled from the ruling party. This one is from Nomabali, who says they have awakened the ANC and made it to realize that if they don't up their game, they will soon be voted out. And Sam says EFF has done nothing except noise and turn our parliament into a preschool. So those are some of the comments coming through, and there are many more. Another one from Collins before we move on. He says, with their input regarding land, EFF has made it clear that it is the only party that is determined to bring back land to the people, unlike Thierry Lekota and Cyril Ramaphosa, and they should be voted into power sooner rather than later. All right, so not unexpectedly, Absolutely. You have your detractors among those as well. So before we come to the land question, one of our lead stories in the news this morning speaks to the death of 6 miners again at a mine in Palabora in Limpopo this morning. Talk to us about your view on that.
Well, we send our condolences to the families of the deceased, and we know that this type of accidents that happens in the mines is as a result of private capital wanting to maximize profit, and therefore they've never regarded the issue of safety as a priority. So even if it includes putting lives of people at risk so that we can maximize profit, that's what they go for. And that's why the EFF in its founding manifesto says mines must be nationalized, because we know that the state will not maximize profit, the state will prioritize people, the state will prioritize workers, the state will prioritize the safety of our workers. So the mining bosses don't care about what happens to human beings. What they care about is to make sure that they get those minerals and they can make as more money as possible.
Well, they will argue that, you know, they're not in business to be philanthropic. So where does the solution lie in this regard?
That's why we're saying the solution is the state ownership of strategic sectors of the economy, so that we've got a state that plays a central role, and it can also be a majority shareholder with a minority being left to the private sector. But the state must call the shots, because if they are in a business of making money and they don't care about killing people, we must be worried that we don't want a business which disregards the lives of human beings and prioritizes profit.
So from where we are standing right now, that would be medium to long term. In the immediate term, what needs to happen? Because last week, I think we were talking about over 140 deaths this year alone in the mining sector, and now another 6 more today. Where does the immediate solution lie? The
immediate solution is mining safety. The state must act on mines that do not comply with the mining safety. You need to have politicians that are involved in the mining sector pulling out of that, because they've compromised the ruling party and the government's intervention when it comes to the issues of mining safety. The safety officers are there, but the safety officers are being rendered useless, because when they're supposed to intervene decisively, they are told this mine is linked to a so and so. And worse in our country, I think it is going to be worse, because our president has got huge interest in mining sector. And when you attack the mining sector, you are interfering with the interest of the president. And that's why it's going to be difficult to regulate the mining sector. It's very simple. Safety must be complied with. Those who don't comply with safety, they must be punished, including closing down those mines, withdrawing their licenses, and redirecting those licenses to those who will pay much more closer attention to issues of safety.
Mr. Malema, so since your inception, you have very vigorously basically fought and campaigned for the removal of former President Jacob Zuma, successfully so. You have fought once again successfully to look into the amendment of the Constitution with regard to the land issue, and also the minimum wage issue. And all these, I think, you would claim as victories for the EFF. But what would you say has been the most pivotal victory for you since your inception?
It was to see the children of the poor walking into universities for free. And when I said through the EFF that let the children go to school, free education has been declared, people called me all sorts of names, including saying I want to commit stampedes and kill people, discouraging the children to go to school. I was so shocked in my life that can a person be condemned for encouraging young people to go and get education? And they were not condemning young people going to get education. They were worried that the message comes from a person they don't like. And that is a level of degeneration we find ourselves as a country, that even if a good message comes from a person I don't like, I must just reject that message because I'm rejecting that individual. I never thought in my entire life I can have a country fighting against people going to school. And I'm happy that almost 100,000 young people today are receiving free education. We now must intensify to make sure that it becomes free in terms of other levels, so that no one leaves school, they withhold the results. All of them, who, especially those who pass, their results must be given to them, and their debt must be cancelled. Those who fail and those who drop out without any proper justification, they've wasted state resources. We must go after them. They must pay. They must know that failure means paying for the rest of your life. So if you don't want to pay, you have to pass, because we're putting a lot of resources in you as an individual, because EFF believes that education is a permanent solution towards economic freedom in our lifetime.
And then just coming to the land question, which is, of course, very contentious at the moment, and the EFF at the forefront of agitating for a land expropriation without compensation. Now, given how things have played out thus far, you know, there have been those who are in agreement with you and those who are not in agreement with you. And I saw last week, over the weekend, the former public protector coming out and saying, when the EFF actually encourages people to occupy land, vacant land, you are actually doing so in at variance with the constitution of the land. What's your response? Because there are many who feel that way.
No, not at all. You will remember, Sakina, that the black people who stay in the townships, they got land through occupation. There's no proper black settlement which has ever taken place in this country. We've always had to force ourselves. And only after, including after 1994, only after do we get recognized as a proper settlement of black people. We have helped communities. Many people today have got a place to call home. We have not taken any occupied places. We have not disrupted any, functional, productive business. We have always insisted that an unoccupied land, let it be used. Let it be put to use. How can that be in contradiction with the Constitution? So, what makes me happy about the whole thing is that people are expressing themselves, people are giving an input. It's a very emotive issue, and we all hold a different view, and we respect the view of the former public protector. We'll take that into consideration when we consolidate the resolutions of the committee. But that was another wow moment for me, to see Parliament passing a resolution on expropriation of land without compensation and saying, let's go to our people and ask them whether we should go ahead with this or not, and if, why, and if not, why. And our people are engaged in that discussions. And we must listen to what the people say. That we're so happy that since the arrival of the EFF, we're being asked the question about the land. We've always seen people passing legislations and all that. No one has ever sought our input with regard to what needs to happen to this land which belongs to our great-great-grandmothers and fathers.
What's your view with regard to the Ingonyama Trust?
Ingonyama Trust belongs to the king, and therefore it has been established through a legislation that belongs to the state. Ingonyama Trust will not be dissolved. The land under Ingonyama Trust will be owned by the state, and the new responsibilities and tasks will be assigned to Ingonyama Trust. Concerns are raised because communities are raising concerns. The panel went in. The people, not only Ingonyama Trust, by the way, the people are saying, please talk to our traditional leaders. They take land from us and give it to corporate. And that corporate comes in and dig graves and take our deceased out without talking to us. So it's not only Ingonyama Trust. All of that, the land should be owned by the state, and all these institutions, through legislation, their roles will be clearly indicated as to what is their role going forward. Ingonyama Trust
Why not
raises,
dissolve it and give the land directly to the people? Give the people title deeds.
We'll talk about that. No, title deed is not an option, Sakina. That title deed actually is a scheme. They want to steal land again from our people. Listen to what they say. They say, give people title deeds, and they don't stop there, so that people can come and get debt. And when they get into debt, they will be unable to pay the debt, and the banks will take the land. Who owns the banks? The white man will still own that land, because it's the white man who owns the bank. We must never fall into that temptation. The solution is Let all land be owned by the state, and the state must engage in a program to develop productive forces. Once we know that our people are in a good position to can work the land on their own, they've got the necessary resource, then we can consider redistributing that land to individual ownership. But for as long as our people don't have anything and productive forces have not been developed, the first option will be to get a title deed and sell this land. And we'll be back to square one. Let the state own it and protect it for you, because you don't have anything. Once you have worked the land and you have developed your own resources, and we are sure that if a land is assigned to this person, the first option will not be to sell. Then we say, yes, now you can take over and proceed on your own.
And I wish we had more time, but we don't. Very briefly, Pravin Gordhan, and you are on record saying that perhaps he is too powerful. The president has allowed him to be too powerful. Speak to me about that. What is that about?
Pravin has always been like that. During the UDF times, he isolated those he didn't agree with through the cabal. When the ANC did not put him in the top delegation of the negotiations, he had to go and revive the Indian Congress to come through a racist organization called the Indian Congress so that he can sit in the top negotiations. Since then, he has been trying to manipulate systems in favor of white monopoly capital. He's a very powerful man. Not even the president can touch him. That's why when Zuma touched him, the whole corporate, the people who were ordinarily not interested to talk about Zuma going, all of them all of a sudden developed an interest on ensuring that Zuma goes because he has touched the untouchable. We cannot have an untouchable in South Africa, particularly if he's not elected by our people. Now, we are challenging the president that Pravin should actually be an ordinary minister like the rest of the ministers. Deputy president, by the way, doesn't know when the boards get appointed. He sees them through the media. You are better than deputy president actually, because you get the statement and read it to the deputy president when he's at home. You know before the deputy president that Transnet body has been changed, that the CEO of this thing has been changed. The deputy president is also a head of deployment committee of the ANC. All these things do not go through the deployment committee of the ANC. They are run by Pravin and his cohorts. In that scheme is Trevor Manuel, is Trevor Manuel's wife. They do the bidding for the Stellenbosch mafia.
And you know this how, Julius?
Because I'm in politics, man. You can't survive these 5 years without knowing the underground, what's happening, who's who, what do they do, what are the plans. So that's my job.
So just besides that, you talk about the Indian Congress, and many people are asking, whether you are racist. You're always after the Indian people, they say, always after whites. They believe you are racist. How do you respond to those people?
No, I'm not racist. I go after every wrongdoing, even black people. I came here and went after Saudi. I'm racist now for going after Saudi. I go after every wrongdoing because they do that with me. They hold me accountable. I should hold them accountable, particularly if they are engaged in a conduct that is unacceptable. White racism is institutionalized. Indian racism is institutionalized. It must be confronted. I said majority of Indians. I didn't say all Indians. Judge Yakub says 90%. When you say 90%, you mean all of them. They've never taken him to task. Why? Because he's Indian. It's acceptable for Indian to say such things, not a poor African child of a domestic worker. So even if I repeat after a white person, you are too poor, and you are too African to say things that can only be said by Indians and whites. I'm not going to allow that. I've always insisted that we must see ourselves as equal to these people, be in a position to receive the same things they receive, and say the things they are able to say without fear or favor.
And just a final one, Jacques Pau. There was that open letter written to you by Jacques and a bit of to and fro there. So what's the latest? Who's doing what
Jacques
to whom
Pau says Adrian Mazotti paid my tax. I said to him, you are wrong. He comes and says, oh, you are right. It's not Adrian Mazotti, it's Kyle. And then Jacques Pau is still being praised. He's not being called a liar, that you actually deliberately lied. Jacques Pau doesn't read, because if he reads, he would have read my affidavit to court. I'm the one who said Kyle paid 1 million after the person who promised to pay my 1 million bailed out on me. It was my responsibility to go and look for that 1 million, because if I had not raised that money within that period, my deal with SARS would have collapsed. That's the whole idea. Now, they bring in Mazoti because they want to destroy the good image of the EFF. Why Mazoti's money was never a problem when we were fighting Zuma? Mazoti's money is a problem now when we are fighting the white monopoly capital, which we warned during Zuma's time, that Zuma is a distraction. Once we're done with this distraction, we're coming for you. And we're coming for them, Mazoti or no Mazoti. We have registered the party. They didn't want the EFF to register. They're disappointed the EFF has registered. We're here now. We're not going anywhere. We'll be here in the next 20 years, causing trouble in South Africa. What is trouble? Disrupting the status quo. You can't disrupt the status quo through prayer. You have to engage in noise. That tweet that says you have not done anything but made noise. I mean, that's a contradiction. How can noise not be something? We are doing something and that thing is called noise. It's a necessary noise. It has put us where we are. Otherwise, we're going to be presided over by kleptocracy in the absence of that good noise.
Well, thank you so much to Julius Malema, leader of the EFF, talking to us about the party's 5th anniversary and also what they have achieved over this time. And with that, I'm going to hand you over to Lee Ann for the latest news.